All right, I think we can go ahead and get started, Anton.
Okay, great. Good evening, Fresno. I'm so glad and grateful for this opportunity for us to virtually come together to discuss this very important project, despite the challenges of COVID. We recognize the effort that it takes to join us this evening. And despite these challenges that we all face personally for over the past 2 years, community building and placemaking must and will continue. My name is Anton Smith. I am a senior associate at Studio-MLA and project manager for the park at MLK Magnet Core. We have been, invited here on behalf of the City of Fresno, 2,500 MLK, and Mia Lair, president of Studio-MLA. We have a lot to share this evening, and we have put together a great design team that will deliver what I believe will be a transformative park space for the communities of Southwest Fresno. Before I turn it over to Council Member Miguel Arias, I would like to do some virtual housekeeping with you. So next slide. So we have a meeting protocol, as you know, for those that are savvy with Zoom. We have a simultaneous Spanish and Hmong interpretation for this evening, and you can join via the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. The speaker's view can be maximized by making adjustments and dragging the separator. For those of you who want to take a chance at that, please take a moment to do that. And for those that need to transfer over to the translation channels, please do so now. Questions and comments. We actually look forward to hearing from you tonight. And the questions and comments can be provided at any time during tonight's community meeting, but by using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be answered following the presentation. Following the presentation, use the raise hand feature if you would like to direct questions or comments to the project team. We ask that you keep your comments and concerns or questions respectful and focused, and they will be addressed in the most appropriate manner. If some of these questions need to be deferred, we will direct you to a website or a contact person to be able to address your questions. With that said, I'd now turn it over to the council member.
Thank you, Anton, and thank you for the 40+ individuals from our community that are joining us today. For the record, we do have translations, of course, in Spanish and Hmong. We recognize that our community, especially that at West Fresno, is extremely diverse. We want to make sure we are as inclusive as possible. Today, we are here to give feedback from the public and residents in Fresno on what kind of programming, which is a fancy way to describe park amenities for the park that's being funded by the state of California in partnership with the City of Fresno. So we'll be listening for ideas, for specifics on what kind of amenities the community would like to see in this park. I'm really anxious and looking forward to hearing from residents of that area. So if you have an opportunity to speak and give feedback, please let us know if you live in the area so that we can take that into account. We are really looking for a really good inclusive process. This is the first of, I believe, 2 meetings before our city staff and our outside experts come back with some renderings of what the first phase of the park can look like. So thank you again for coming today and participating. With the passage of Measure P, this will be one of the many meetings that we have across the city and the district as we design and build new parks and, of course, renovate existing parks and give folks the green space that they have always deserved in our city, but we've never had the resources to accomplish. So I'm looking forward to the feedback, and thank you again for coming today.
Thank you, Council Member. So as you know, we have put together a project team, and we at Studio-MLA advocate for advocacy by design. And what I mean by that is that we look at the foundations of our work and working with the communities as critical to our process. We believe in meaningful, inclusive collaboration as fundamental principles to our design process and our design solution. Our team is comprised of 2,500 MLK, the City of Fresno, Transform Fresno, you, the community, stakeholders, VRPA, Gateway Engineering, Cummings, LP Lighting, Mark Thomas, Structural Engineering. Throughout the presentation, we have a designated poll person. Dina Graham of VRPA will be that go-to. And you will see a few pop-up questions throughout the presentation, of which you'll have an opportunity to address. So the agenda, we've given you the introduction. Courtney is going to talk about Transform Fresno and give you a little bit more insight on that. Sylvester M. Hall of 2500 MLK will address the West Creek Village Master Plan and the early work that's done for that project and continuing to be executed. Ben Feldman would give you a little bit more history on the park planning aspects of that master plan and how it ties into our current project. And Maria Landoni will give you a little bit more insight in terms of where we are with the conceptual design work and the schematic work that is underway now. And we'll end with questions and comments. So with that, I'll turn it over. Oh, one more slide. This slide essentially gives you the project timeline. We've started as of last year, the end of 2021. We are currently at the first community meeting, and we will have one coming up very, very soon. The intent is to engage you as much as possible in the design process of the work. And so between 30% design development and 60% design development, we would like to engage you at least twice to be able to get some feedback from the community and to calibrate our work according to community needs, programming needs, and address all of the concerns that we are getting as feedback from you all. The end date for our project will be 2024, where we would like to have a wonderful park opening and to meet you all in person. I also would like to know that, let you know that the virtual meeting that we have scheduled for the future might be an in-person meeting if the current conditions change. So with that, I'll turn it over to Courtney.
I think we have a polling question first.
That's correct, sorry. So Dina?
Thank you, Anton. Courtney, did you want to answer the question that we have in our Q&A box right now?
Yes, Daniel is asking if we have translation being shared audibly, and yes, we are having simultaneous translation for both Spanish and Hmong currently. Just choose your channel and you will hear your interpreter. I also want to encourage everyone, all of those folks that are English speaking, to also choose the English channel. That way, when we do have a Q&A, and if there is a person that does not speak English, we will also be able to hear and answer those questions as well. And you will be able to hear their questions specifically. So I encourage everybody to do that. With that, Dina, if you want to go ahead and start the first poll.
Sure. I think we'll start real quick with a note on tonight's gift card raffle. All participants who stay with us for the duration of our meeting today will be entered in a $50 Amazon gift card drawing. That gift card has been donated tonight by VRPA, and we'll notify the winner via email with your winning electronic gift card enclosed. So we'll move over to the polling. As the project team moves through tonight's presentation, we'd like to take the time to get to know you better. We'll be pausing at several points in tonight's presentation to ask questions that will allow you to help us understand what your needs and wants are for this regional park. For our first question, we'd like to know how you heard about tonight's community meeting. Hector, you can go ahead. And we'll give you a couple minutes here to see how we do. Hector, I can't quite see how many we have still voting. If you can let me know that, that'd be great. So our first question is, how did you find out about tonight's event? Was that via email, via social media, via website, via flyer, word of mouth, news media, or other?
I think we can go ahead and end the poll now. We have the majority of people.
Okay. So our results are telling us that the majority of you learned via email and then social media and word of mouth, with a few of us getting information from our flyer. If you do have responded with other and you'd like to let us know how that other came about, you can drop that information into the Q&A box and we'll document that for later. All right, perfect. Thanks, Hector. At this time, Courtney with Transform Fresno is going to provide an introduction to Transform Fresno.
Thank you, Dina. So good evening, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Courtney Espinoza, and I'm the program manager for Transform Fresno and the TCC grant. I wanted to start off by providing some information about Transform Fresno as a whole. So Transform Fresno is a suite of 24 projects funded by the state of California and chosen by the community. The state, through the Strategic Growth Council, has provided $66.5 million in TCC funding. Locally, we are matching that with $122 million in local funding for a total of $188 million worth of investments into a 5 square mile project area located in Southwest Fresno, downtown, and Chinatown. This equates to 24 different projects and 11 different local partners involved, all centered around environmental and economic solutions. Next slide, please. With that $188 million of investment into the community, our goals are to improve the overall health of residents and provide environmental benefits through the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, expand access to education and training programs, provide high-quality jobs for residents, and business development through capacity building of local organizations. We hope that these investments are just the start and will spark future investments and improve health for our community. I want to thank everyone. I want to encourage everyone to visit the Transform Fresno website at www.transformfresno.com for additional information and updates on all Transform Fresno projects. Next slide, please. Tonight, we are specifically talking about project number 13, which is the park at MLK Magnet Core. Although not an exhaustive list, this map outlines the location of the park just south of Church Avenue between Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and West Avenue, just adjacent from the new Fresno City College West Fresno campus that's currently under construction. This city park project is led by the City of Fresno Public Works Department with our design consultants as Studio-MLA. The TCC grant is also funding the purchase of the property, the design and construction phases of the park. This will include 100 trees, low water planting and irrigation, a walking path, restroom, utilities infrastructure, site furnishings, and LED lighting. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sylvester Hall, visionary and strategic planner for the West Creek Village Development Group, to speak about the development that will be surrounding the park and the 2 privately owned parcels located within the park footprint. Sylvester?
Thank you, Courtney. That warm introduction. Thank you for your transform these programs and projects. As Courtney said, my name is Sylvester McCall, and I'm a principal with the Village Project Area Master of 2,500 ML. Our development team is comprised of myself, Sylvester Hall, Mr. John Shahadi, and his 3 sons, Steve, Jim, and Tom Shahadi. On behalf of our entire development team, I'm honored to be here with you. As Courtney said, I'm the visionary and strategic planner of the project, and it's been my life's work to help transform my grew up in and where my mom and my family still. The West Creek Village Development Project area is a 120-acre multi-phase mixed-use project consisting of a community park, that's our focus here tonight, State Center Community College District's West Fresno campus, and additionally, some of our components, as you can see, consist of our neighborhood commercial, regional commercial, single family residential, multifamily, and a Washington Union School District. This West Fresno project is a complete neighborhood concept, which fully fulfills the City of Fresno's 2035 general plan, goals and objectives, and extends the Southwest Pacific Plan's goals and objectives. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. 2500 MLK completed our land transaction in September of last year with the City of Fresno, which is enabling this extraordinary, much-needed 10-acre community park in Southwest Fresno, and is expected to have all the amenities of a world-class park. West Creek Village Community Park will provide a variety of programs and services ranging from recreation, nutrition, education. City of Fresno and nonprofit affiliates will also provide additional services programs that will address the needs of the community. The park will be anchored by the West Creek Village Connected Impact Community Center and West Creek Village Iconic Museum. Next slide. Our first nonprofit building in the park footprint, if you will, is our Iconic Museum. Our Iconic Museum will house our community art gallery, art exhibits, art school, and will facilitate an experience of cultural arts, remote cultural arts events throughout the West Creek Village Community Park area, Southwest Fresno, and beyond. We expect the West Creek Iconic Museum will be the cornerstone of arts development and activities throughout the Southwest Fresno. Next. Lastly, if you will, our second building is what we call the West Creek Village Connect Impacts. This is extraordinary building that we've envisioned that will facilitate and provide the physical, along with the community, social, economic, cultural program and services that will assure all the components, programs, and services of the West Creek Village Development Project area are fully and completely available, integrated, utilized, implemented throughout the community of Southwest Fresno, and definitely creating the optimum level of community equity, diversity, inclusion, integration, and sustainability. A few of our programming will be education and tutoring, child care and development, health and wellness, job readiness and career development, housing services, entrepreneurship and financial literacy training, mental health assistance, and much, much more. And we have a few of our nonprofit collaborative prospective partners listed as well. I want to thank you very much to the City of Fresno, Studio-MLA, and Councilman Arias for being here tonight, and most definitely want to thank the community of Southwest Fresno. Thank you very much. And now I'll give you back to.
Thank you, Sylvester. Okay, our next couple of polling questions will give us an idea of where you're coming from and your awareness of the West Creek Village development. How close do you currently live to the West Creek Village and future MLK Park? Less than 1 mile? Within 1 to 2 miles? within 2 to 5 miles, or beyond 5 miles. And Courtney or Hector, if you can let me know when we've got the majority of our group in.
That looks good, Dina.
Okay. Yeah. About 41% of you live beyond 5 miles out. And between a mile and 2 to 5 miles has about 23% of each. And then 13% remaining for our within 1 to 2 miles. We can go on to our next question, Hector. Have you attended any community meetings for the West Creek Village Master Plan previous to tonight?
That looks good, Dina.
50-50. So some of you have joined us previously and some of you have not. We welcome you both. Look forward to moving on. Ben's going to go over an overview of the planning process for the park next. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dina. My name is Ben Feldman. I'm a principal with Studio-MLA, overseeing our design efforts and moving towards really realize the vision that was cast during the master planning process with Sylvester and the 2500 MLK team. If we go to the next slide, it's great to get this polling information for us so that we can kind of share sort of the development with you all that were part of that master planning process, as well as give folks who weren't a part of that master planning effort the chance to see where the origin of the design and the framework and the concepts are coming from. And this is important because with any project, we really try and open it up with a big vision, get as much community input to help us not only identify sort of the wants and needs, but understand the complexities with various contextual situations that can range from access to safety to any number of things to really hone in that. And I think, through careful design and planning, we can really accomplish a lot to improve that physical environment and also create a space for better social inclusion opportunities. So this is the master plan that was done in 2019. So it seems both relatively not that long ago, but it was 2 years ago with all that we've been going through. And with that period, we were identifying a certain number of programs that you can see layered over this illustrative conceptual plan that include everything from sports courts to playgrounds to ponds and amphitheaters. If we go to the next slide, we were a part of a master planning team that was led by the firm Mullen Polyzoides, and we had these in-person workshops where we were able to really draw through ideas and put them on the walls and share more ideas and pictures and really get into what makes great places. And of course, it's not just the park, but really a development that's going to surround this place, and most importantly, how it connects into the neighborhood that exists today and how this neighborhood will come and grow over time. So we're here to help design the park, but we really want to help capture the vision for this community and make sure it comes from an authentic place that will really engender a good sense of placemaking that's respectful to both the social kind of aspects, cultural, and economic. If we go to the next slide. So these aspects that I was just mentioning are really captured on the diagram to the left, where we imagine this kind of social, economic, cultural spheres coming together under the umbrella of an better environment. And with climate change and all the stress that's happening around the world, in particular in Fresno, where I happen to see it firsthand, the impacts of fire up in the Sierras, and obviously they're going to happen more often. And through appropriately designing our infrastructure that includes open space, but as well as streets, I think we can really make a difference to help steer things in the better direction and help people realize, that we're all in it together and how we can contribute in different ways. So these are 4 vision kind of statements that really are important for us through the master plan, but also today. And we're going to carry these really to the end that really help move in a particular direction. And those begin with community-centric design. And with that, we're looking at how to make it very accessible, very active, offer culturally important places for people to gather, perform, be themselves, as well as identify this idea of maintaining their eyes on their neighborhood. And this is, I think, the kind of fundamentals of good urbanism, where people know their neighbors. You can walk easily. Your kids can, run across the street, get into this park, or bike there. These are some really important aspects. And as part of that, we're really working within a green network. So it's not just this park, but how it connects to the next park. How do we kind of move in and around the streets? How do we bring in nature into this place? So designing with nature is really one of these aspects that's truly important to us. And we believe, that under the TCC, which is really about climate communities, and what does that mean to really make the case for planting more trees? How do we sequester carbon? How do we manage our soils? Something that is part of the practice within the valley, the great Central Valley of California. How do we, improve those conditions? And then as a park, we believe that this park will become a model for the future generations to look to and remember growing up here, as well as sharing time with their grandparents and really connect it in a generational sense. And moving forward onto the next slide, we want to showcase really those ideas for what could be park programming from that master planning process. And we're going to carry these forward. Maria is going to help explain elements of the park that we envision as opportunities to make these program amenities possible to, in the first sort of day of the opening of the park, as well as imagine how we might layer in opportunities for the future, which at the moment may be a little bit out of reach from our budget today. But we do think these are still important and still valuable to the community. And so we want to realize those community ideas. And the next slide, just to share what's happened, just as all plans do, they tend to change a little bit. And so here, we actually are fortunate enough to have the park grow a bit here. And so we're showing the master plan outline in blue versus the red outline in red, which is the new footprint for this. So Sylvester and the master planning team are currently making adjustments to make way for that, as well as other improvements. And as Courtney had mentioned, the TCC grant is funded with monies that are really allocated for specific purposes, and including all of the things she had previously mentioned, but the 100 trees we believe we can accommodate for. We're gonna really include as many trees as we can, to be honest. Low water use plantings, a walking path, irrigation system, a public restroom, the utilities and infrastructure that need to power and make this park accessible. site furnishings, and proper lighting, and utilizing LED lighting, which is low energy and sort of the better technology for the use in this application. And these two diagrams that you see, the one on the left, which is mentioned as phase one versus the one future phases, the phase one are really about what we're going to set up as a park framework. So these are the simple kind of means of moving in circulation in and around the park. Some of the key features that we're going to present to you in a moment that are these phase one improvements. And then what are the spaces that we envision our future phases are identified for how we can locate those in a way that makes sense and creates a type of complementary synergy to both the park amenities as well as the two program buildings that Sylvester had mentioned in his presentation, which would include fairly lively events, social conditions where we imagine these two buildings and programs to really spill into the park and create a much more meaningful and responsive way to utilize park facilities that's beyond maybe what we're seeing today. So these are exciting ideas. And I believe with that, I'm going to turn it over to Maria to explain the park design.
Thank you, Ben. I am Maria Landoni. I'm a senior associate with the Studio-MLA, and I'm super excited to be here with you tonight to tell you about some of the latest developments in the park design. So as Ben mentioned, we like to start with the big picture and really take that information to the local design to inform our park design. And so what we mean by this macro or big picture is, information about climate change, about air quality, about stormwater, about the aquifers that is beneath Fresno. And so taking all these aspects in consideration, then we want to bring it to our site and produce a design, a proposal that begins to address and hopefully provide a remedy or a solution for some of those to the greatest extent possible, knowing that some of these considerations are much larger, but we can all do a little bit to improve on that regard. So, and in addition to these environmental aspects, we also take in consideration, as we also mentioned before, the urban design, how our park starts to knit into the context, into our neighborhood. And so here we can see in the center of the screen is the West Creek Village. And surrounding the village are a number of great amenities that the city has, schools that have sports fields, play areas, parks. We have a wonderful regional sport complex not far from our site. And so when we are thinking about the program that we want to bring into our site, we're definitely taking these adjacent or close by amenities into consideration. So we can really complement. We want to bring something that is different than what we already have, something that neighbors can say if they want to have, a particular kind of experience, then they would come to this park because it's different than other opportunities that they have surrounding them. And so also these big picture elements that we're talking about, or principles that have to do with social aspects, with environment, with play and education, health and well-being. These are principles that are really guiding our design decisions. And so in the center of this diagram, you see this is the outline of the park. And in big font, we have put, as a council member Arias had said, the program, or a fancy word to say, these are the things that we're going to put in the park, the elements that we want to see in the park. And so all these principles that we see, or goals surrounding our park, will be informing how we design these elements in the park. And so when we are thinking about play, we're thinking about a play that connects kids with nature, that is very engaging, maybe active or physical activity. And the same with other considerations, for health and well-being of all generations and all the population. And so you've seen this slide before. This is talking about the program that the community, many of you, have selected and highlighted as what they would like to see for this park. As we mentioned to you already, we have a TCC grant that will be funding the first phase improvements. And so in this light green, you can see some of these program components that will be covered with the phase 1 TCC grant. We are also highlighting in yellow some of the program elements that we think are great opportunities to bring to the park later or down the road. And so with that in mind, we've also highlighted some of the programs that we think are wonderful opportunities and will require, our community to be partnering with maybe nonprofits or a program leader that can help activate some of these ideas. So now moving into some of the updates on the concept. Here in the screen, you can see the park illustrative plan. And so I'm gonna walk you clockwise, starting in number 1, and just orient you to some of the features, and the upcoming slides are gonna expand on some of this information. But first, I wanna give you kind of like a big picture of the overall park. So starting on number 1, we have a perimeter rain garden. And so this is something that is very much being part of many projects that we do in landscape architecture, in parks, and throughout our communities. And the idea is that we want to trap or capture as much of the stormwater as we can and clean it on site and then infiltrate it. This is, again, one of those things that has greater repercussion on our environment. At key locations on some of the main intersections with the adjacent proposed community, we have entry plazas. So this is a special moment as you're coming into the park, or maybe a place where you can tell your friends, I'll meet you at the entry plaza, a place for connecting with friends or others, neighbors. Number 3 is we are highlighting some of the places where we think some of these future amenities can come into the park. And we'll tell you more about those. We have street trees. As we saw, the TCC include a requirement for trees. Hopefully we'd like to put many more than that. Trees are doing a lot of the work in terms of the heat island effect, cooling off our cities, capturing some of that carbon, and many other benefits, both health-wise, psychological, environmental. Surrounding the park, the interior of the park, we have the park loop. We'll tell you more about it, but you can see it's about almost a little shy than a half-mile long. So a great place to exercise or also meet with friends. Close to the future iconic museum, we have a landscape amphitheater. So this is a naturally graded lawn that can, with a platform, can provide a place for some gatherings, events, community events. Number 7 is what I mentioned, the amphitheater platform. Number 8, we have throughout the park, drought-tolerant planting, and we'll expand on that. Number 9 is a restroom in a sort of like a central location, close to the playground, close to the central green, and other amenities. So, and some of these things will be fine-tuning with our team members and of course cities and other stakeholders on the locations of some of these things. And just to come around, we have a bit of a landform or a mound with a lookout, so we can see the context surrounding us, the rest of the village, but also it's a great opportunity to integrate some nature play. So now I'm gonna go into some of these specific elements. So starting with the central green and planting, the images that you will see in all this slide and others are on the right-hand side. You have a key map that highlights the element that we're describing, and the images to the left begin to describe the character of what we are imagining for these elements. So here you can see the lawn or the central green is a bit of a rolling topography, but it provides an opportunity for a passive recreation or maybe even some active recreation. Surrounding this central green, we want to have some plantings, some drought-tolerant plantings, some possibly native plants, and that not only is something that is important to do because of water use considerations, but also connecting back to the environment, pollinators and species that are naturally drawn to these native plants. So we want to bring some of that and really contribute again back to our environment. This image is a rendering that shows what that might look like. So in the foreground, we have some of these drought-tolerant plantings with native grasses and other species that can bring pollinators. Maybe there is an opportunity to have some signage that describes some of the pollinators that we can see here and have kids really engage with nature at a deeper level. We can also see the central green with some of the activities, both passive and active recreation. And in the distance, start to take a peek at the nature play. One key element that we mentioned before is the park loop. So we see this is a great opportunity to have a wider path that goes around the circumference of the park and is designed in a way that we can have, again, maybe some passive people watching moments, meeting with friends, or maybe just taking a stroll with a neighbor, or maybe it's an opportunity to do some exercising. In the future, one of the elements that neighbors had requested was to have equipment to exercise. So possibly the combination of having the park loop plus some of those exercising machines, one can get really in good shape here. And so something that it will be great is to have your input. How do you see yourself using this park loop? Do you think you will want to come with your kids and maybe take a bike, teach them how to ride a bicycle here? Do you want to just take a stroll and sit on a bench? Depending on how the community needs, we can fine tune some of the materiality to become a better amenity for those ways that you want to use it. And moving into another element, these are the entry plazas that were mentioned at key intersections. So you can see in the images here, we see this is a moment to bring something special, maybe a little bit of seasonality, a little bit of some beautiful material, something that really starts talking about beauty and quality, and something that really talks about Fresno and the amazing things that we can find here. So, they don't have to be something very elaborate. It can be as simple as a change in paving, maybe a seed wall, something that starts to highlight that this is a special entry point into the park. So this rendering or view is one of these entry plazas, and you can see we have the park loop in the back, someone exercising, people walking. But as we come into the entry plaza, we see a change in the paving. Maybe again, it's something special like a stone or a colored concrete. That's something that we will have to refine in the next phase of the design. This is the specificity of some of these elements. We have seat walls on the side, and maybe it's an opportunity to bring some food, ice cream, a bicycle or cart, And on the left-hand side, you can see some of those rain gardens that we'll talk in a moment. So these are the rain gardens. And so all around the perimeter of the park, there is this element that is trying to represent one of our very typical California seasonal streams. And so when it's rainy and it's wet, maybe you might see some water, but most of the year what you see is river rock and, you know, the hints that there is water here in certain times of the year, but not necessarily all of the time. So there are great opportunities to bring in some planting, some types of grasses and different plants that are doing all the work in cleaning and filtrating the storm water as it comes into the park. But also can be great opportunities to create something different. You know, these beautiful boulders, many kids love to play in here. So people can engage with them in different ways. And this section, you can see here the key map, but it's also cutting through the rain garden and the concrete path. I'm gonna move along a little bit quicker. This is a lookout hill. And so the idea is that we can get some elevation to see into the context, but also an opportunity to bring some of the nature play. Very simple interventions can go a long way when kids, you know, for kids to climb and play and have some fun time. This rendering shows that lookout hill with some special plantings with conifers, sort of hinting of the Sierras and the mountains that we see not far from Fresno. And some of the nature play and recreational opportunities. Getting to the end here, so one important element is the amphitheater, the landscape amphitheater, and this photo on the bottom left really shows that character of a simple move in the landform with a platform where we can then start exploring this idea of like a place for community events, gatherings. And so here's an image that shows maybe a day when an event is happening and folks are gathering and enjoying the shade and a good time at the park. So these are some of those programs that we mentioned are for the future. And the way that we're thinking of bringing them into the park, you saw a little bit of a hint, but this diagram is a little bit saying, okay, so these boxes on the left-hand side represent the size of the different program. We have, for example, this is a basketball court, or we have a community garden. And so then on the right-hand side, we are saying, okay, maybe we can feed one basketball court and a community garden, or maybe depending on the priorities that you are gonna tell us, we can start feeding other programs, other locations. So as we are saying down here, the idea is to provide a flexible structure for a park that can grow over time. And we're happy to expand on that. So with that, I'll pass it on to Dina. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. So the time now, we're gonna listen and learn from Maria and then have you tell us what you think is the most valuable element or program. So Hector, if you would launch our poll question 4. What park element or program do you value the most? So which is the most important to you? Is it shade? Is it places to sit? Good lighting? Places for children? Open space for flexible play? Places to jog and exercise? Or something different? These will be elements that are planned and going in now. So how are we looking there, Courtney?
We got about 63% of folks.
Okay, we'll give you a couple more minutes here to chime in.
For those who might be having a hard time picking one, we actually have a solution, which is a longer poll that Dina will reference in just a moment, that it's going to be posted to Transform Fresno's website, and that'll give you the chance to really rate these as you really desire to do so. So we're not forcing you just to choose one for that purpose. But.
That looks about good, Dina.
All right. All right. So 26% of us are looking for open space for flexible play. 24% are looking for places for children. 8% are looking for shade or good lighting. 18% would like a place to jog and or exercise. 3% are looking for places to sit. And 13% are saying other. So if your other has a specific, you can drop that information into our Q&A box. Thank you, Hector. We can go to our next question. Our next question will look at the items for the future. So what park element or program would you like to see in the future? So that'd be the most recent discussion that Maria was talking about. So what park element program would you like to see in the future? Is it a splash pad or fitness stations, picnic area, a community garden, sports courts, or other?
See, we have a question related to this poll. I was going to offer the answer. So the question is, please define sports court. And so sports court would include such amenities as a basketball court, or perhaps a volleyball court, or area, something that's more athletically driven program.
Are we looking there, Courtney?
We got about 64%, but it seems like it's slowed down pretty good. So we can stop here.
Okay. All right. So 38% are looking for a splash pad. 29% of us are looking for fitness stations. 24% a picnic area. 26% a community garden. 32% are looking for a sports court. And 12% are looking for others. So again, if you want to drop that other information into the Q&A box, that's great. As Ben referenced, we're working on a full-length survey that will be posted to the Transform Fresno website. And it will also go out and noticing. So if you don't see it when you go to the Transform Fresno webpage, you can also sign up and we'll keep you in the loop of things that are coming. So make sure you do visit transformfresno.com and learn a little bit more. Thanks, Hector. And Anton, I'll pass it back to you for the question and answer period.
Great. Thank you very much, Dina. So we did have a few questions that came through, probably a total of 6 to 13 in range, 16 in total, actually. The first question was from Venice Curry, who asked the question, how solar can be included into the park design for energy efficiency? And she has concern about the climate. I'm going to take a pass at answering this question, which is we have several venues or opportunities to implement some solar power in terms of lighting fixtures, trash receptacles, and perhaps some of the building facade can be, or roof line can be utilized for local solar power. This is still kind of early in development. We will have a range of opportunities to investigate further on including those types of power saving and water saving types of equipment within the park.
Anton, if I may add to your response, the city is currently evaluating plans to do solar on all the parks in the city. Most of the solar, though, is being placed in parking lots in these parks because you don't want solar panels on the street parking where somebody was going to crash into it. In this case, the current design of the park doesn't call for, I don't think I've seen a lot of on-site parking. So, if we do solar, we would have to identify a parking lot to place those solar panels onto, as that's what we're doing for other parks. But that is work in progress. We're probably a year away from solidifying those plans to place solar panels in parks parking lots.
Great, thank you, Councilmember. The other question that came through, which is also from Venice Curry, how can toddlers, bigger kids, play structure be included? Similar to Inspiration Park, whereas the slides, interactive musical features, climbing walls. So essentially the question is, do we have a range of play for different age groups? Maria?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. So as we highlighted on this slide presentation, for the initial phase, we will have nature play. So we are looking to create opportunities for exploring, and these ones are a little more, I should say, free or just a spontaneous engagement of play. But over time, we have heard that the community wants to have play, accessible play. So this is the kind of feedback that we want to hear from the community. What are the priorities? And based on that feedback, the program that we're hoping we can face over time.
Great, thank you. Another question from Ivanka Saunders is asking the park loop, well, maybe stating the park loop needs to be tree lined due to hot days, and we agree. Wide enough for children learning to bike, with 18 inches dirt sides for roads, and include exercise circulation equipment. And the recommendation is for nature play, 100 square feet, bamboo maze. This person is a very creative designer. Thank you, Ivanka. Ben, I'd like to give you an opportunity to answer that.
Yeah, this is exactly the type of feedback we were looking for, to both, share our ideas and have you provide those comments and then share your own ideas. So there's certainly, this is the early phase for this park development. So we'll definitely explore these ideas and see how we can register them. As it relates to shade and these circulation elements, we would agree wholeheartedly that we want to really promote the way that we can find opportunities for shade at different times of the day, so that this park can be usable throughout the day on every month of the year. And we know that's a hard job to tackle when we're talking about the middle of summer and it's noon, but we do believe there's a way to accomplish that and kind of holistically identify these opportunities. So we thank you.
Letitia Harris asks, will there be an opportunity for EV charging stations?
If there's a if there's a parking lot for the park within the city footprint, the answer would be yes, because we are doing EV charging stations, part of the solar projects. If the parking is going to be on the street, the answer is probably a no, because we don't do EV charging stations on the street. And it would be up to the two parcels at the end if they do EV charging stations on their private property.
Okay. Looking for related questions to power. Debbie Darden asks, what about solar power that is supposed to be put out West Jensen, Councilman Harris?
Yeah, we're building a solar panel in West Fresno, and that solar panel, we're building a solar farm, I'm sorry, in West Fresno on about 100 acres. And that solar power will be feeding the homes in West Fresno and across the city. It won't be directly connected to any specific property. And that will generate green power and a discount of 25% in people's energy bills, but it will not be directly connected to this facility. It will be connected to the PG&E grid.
Daniel Dominiquez asks, Hinton Center across the street has plenty of basketball courts to choose from. What is lacking in open space fields to play multiple sports on?
To Daniel's point, my office is establishing a West Fresno Parks Committee to look at all the parks in West Fresno on a regional approach, because we're exactly trying to answer that question. As we build new parks and improve existing parks, some of them will be potentially tear downs and reconstructions, others will be renovations, others might repurpose a tennis court to a basketball court. So we are looking to not duplicate the same amenities next to each other, but to give folks around a lot of variety within their region, their neighborhood. So that is the purpose of that committee. And Daniel, if you want to participate, just contact us, and we are making appointments to that committee.
Okay. So being conscious of the time, it's now 7:08. Courtney, how much time do we have left?
I mean, if we still have questions, I would love to answer those questions.
Okay, I'll continue. So Sylvia Trujillo, sorry if I mispronounced your name, asked, what are the plans for security for this park?
I would say that the current Measure P does allocate money for park rangers. That program is still being, developed in the Measure P Commission, but there is money set aside for security at each of the city parks. So we will, of course, have quite a bit of lighting, and we're hoping activity would, dissuade people from misbehaving. But we are finalizing or in the process of developing the plans for the park ranger program that will provide on-site security for our parks across the city.
Sylvia also asks, will there be places for wheelchair charging areas? Wheelchair accessibility is a must because there is a lot in SW.
Scott, I confirm if I'm right, but this park needs to be ADA compliant, right? So I'm sure we'll have some ADA parking on the street designated somewhere, and all the on-ramps would be ADA compliant.
That's 100% correct. And our design team will need to look into the wheelchair charging area question, but the entire facility will be ADA compliant.
Okay. Debbie Darren asked, we keep wanting to incorporate a community garden. I have not seen a successful community garden yet. Why are we still wanting a community garden in West Fresno?
I would simply say that that's one of the many amenities that are being discussed, and that's why we're having these meetings, so that people can be clear about what amenities they would like at this particular park.
Agreed. So if there isn't a consensus for a community garden, then obviously we would not include it in the design. Sean Felton asked, with the amphitheater, will there be time where there might be art events at the park? Sylvester, maybe you can answer this one.
Yes, the iconic museum is being designed by 3 Grammy and Oscar-winning artists, and also we have some world-renowned graphic artists in kind of the iconic museum. The iconic museum itself is perceived to, if you will, be the cultural art center of all of Southwest Fresno. As a matter of fact, our lead designer on that team is one of our eldest local artists, Will Porter, who's heading up that particular museum. And so, of course, we will help facilitate cultural arts events all throughout the park, if you will. Thank you for that question.
And if I may add on, Ton, I also want to reemphasize that this is going to be a city park. So if an amphitheater, if that makes it to a final construction phase, then the amphitheater would be available for the public to rent, like they rent any other, public facility in the Parks Department. So if somebody wants to have a birthday party or celebration, they would go to the Parks Department, rent the space out, and then they would be able to utilize it. So I do anticipate whatever amenities are built would be utilized by the public.
Okay. Great. We have time for a few more questions. All of these questions will be fielded and responded to if we don't respond to them here. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. This is a good one from Daniel Dominiquez. What are the plans for FAX bus stops at this location?
There is a bus stop already planned at the college campus. So it would be walking distance from this park. There's, I think, a bus stop already in front of Gaston. So if there's an additional stop, that is yet to be determined, but there's already a couple bus stops within walking distance of this park.
Also, Antoine, if you will, there's a Martin Luther King Boulevard has a couple bus stops as well. That particular thoroughfare, which is under design, maybe Scott Moser may be along with that question along that thoroughfare, and also Jensen Avenue as well. We'll have city transportation. Scott, could you speak to that possibly?
Yes, Sylvester, and that's correct. There are bus stops either existing or planned on those corridors. As far as the loop road itself, I think just depending upon demand for the park services and the Connective Impact Community Center, the iconic museum, that would determine future FACTS decisions. If they can support a route, if there's demand for that, generally the goal is to provide that service. So we'll be working with Assistant City Manager Greg Barfield and Joe Vargas from FACTS Department on that.
Tasha Guest asks, is there a way to make the splash pad as part of the next phase?
I would say that all the additional amenities like playground equipment and splash parks would all be appropriate for the second phase. Our goal is to have this consulting group and the city design the full space, build the first phase, and help design part of the second phase so that we can then apply for Measure P money and other funds to complete the second phase of the park.
Okay. Jose, there's a question from Veronica Robles in the chat that hopefully you can translate for us.
I can translate, Anton, too.
Okay, great.
Okay, so it says, good evening, everybody, and thank you for thinking of our area in the west side. I would like to know if there will be any shops where they will sell sweets in this project.
It's a great idea. I think we'll put that in the the inbox for good ideas. But yeah, maybe Sylvester, you have some thoughts there in terms of the retail mix kind of flanking the park.
Thank Maria for her question number one. I think it speaks to the integration of the park. Although we talk about a community park, the park is really the nucleus of the center of the West Creek Village Development Project area. And it has to be approached in a totally integrated manner. And even down to our pop-up eateries, if you will, being an element that folks realize that fits with the rest of our amenities throughout. So, of course, we have retail around the park, if you will. We have the iconic museum, the Connect Impact Center, which we're going to have eateries, and we're going to allow vendors to be able to, participate in those particular spaces. And I'm sure the city as well will probably have cart drivers and street vendors that are licensed that will be able to sell their particular products throughout. That is a great question, and I don't see it limited to just sweets. I see it limited to all sorts of healthy foods.
Great.
Thank
Jordan
you.
Jackson.
I'm typing the question on translating the question on the chat, so everybody knows it's being translated back. Thank you.
Okay, great. Jordan Jackson is very practical and wants to know, how do we plan on protecting this park from vandalism and encampment?
It's a very practical but complicated answer. On the encampments, there is no camping out in parks. That's not allowed in the city. We are, of course, housing thousands of people that are homeless, but there's more work to be done. And as I indicated, we do have a Parks Ranger program in Measure P that's funded that would look to provide security for each of the parks.
Okay.
Antoine, I just want to, go further. West Creek Village Development Project area includes State Center and College Community District. It includes our neighborhood commercial. It includes our regional commercial. It includes our single family homes. It includes our multi-family homes. It includes Washington Union School District. I really envision, Scott and Councilman Harris, if you will, us having a integrated security effort, in the area with all of our various security agencies working together to make sure that we're providing, the security that this particular community person is asking about. I really see a high level of maintenance, security of being maintained throughout the entire development area. We have a community facilities district fund that's being formed that allows for enhanced security throughout the park that can be augmented in with the new program that the councilman's referring to. So if we work with State Center, we work with our development group, we work with our home builders, and also we are maintaining the multifamily, and we'll need security there. They do a great job with the Fresno Housing Authority programs, with their security programs and their residential programs. So if we all work together, I really see a very comprehensive, integrated effort between all the agencies involved. Project, if that would make sense.
Ben, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about park design and what it lends to safe public space.
Yeah, sure. And just to acknowledge, there are a number of comments coming through and great questions. And I think there's some folks that maybe didn't have their question answered. We're trying to really capture a lot of these questions and maybe bridge them together so that we can kind of stay on a particular theme. But to the question about security and also safety and just really having the feeling like it's a comfortable place to bring your children, I would echo what Sylvester had just mentioned about, this master plan being one that holistically considers design and the surroundings of this park with the intent to make the basic premise of eyes on the street a part of the day in the life of this experience. So you should be seeing more friendly faces than sort of people that you may have concerns about. With that, the design of this park really balances the ideas of discovery and shade and all the things that we really need to make it a desirable park to go to, with the ideas of what is known as crime prevention through environmental design. And that has an acronym that folks may know of called CEPTED, which doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but it's important because with those ideas, you can really have a sense of visibility and depth and seeing in and around places so that you feel safe and there's no real kind of opportunities for people to hide. At the same time, and what Maria had presented earlier in the presentation was this idea of a kind of a key landform or an expression of landscape that would allow people to climb, up this hillside and especially for children to really enjoy that, kind of feat of play. And this will be the one moment where you won't have full visibility all the way across the park. And we think that's an important thing to acknowledge because when you come to a park and it's really just sort of a road that has a grassy field with some trees on it, it doesn't leave you with that feeling like you've had a significant experience there. And we want to reach that level of experience where, your children, yourselves, your grandparents, all ages really have a sense of interest here. We also recognize that the power of views. And so this idea of looking out over the park and perhaps even looking out to the mountains and back to downtown is a really kind of key thing in terms of how we're experiencing things. So we want to balance sort of that experience with that sense of safety. And we're still very early in this, and we'll have that opportunity to talk through and look at some of the details in our next meeting. But we do really appreciate that comment, and we're going to do the best we can to kind of balance that.
Okay. Question from Michael and Lewis. Will there be an opportunity to partner with education institutions to study plants for career in horticulture? What about other water features, i.e. fountains, using recycled water? And she thanks us.
On the recycled water, I do believe that the whole park will be serviced by recycled water. I believe that's where all the recycled water infrastructure is in the city. So that would be a huge element from the beginning. And Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe this is a park that we anticipate, rolling out a recycled water program.
Councilmember, you are correct. We just recently installed the main lines in the street to provide recycled water to this park.
And the college campus will also have recycled water, and they will also have significant amount of green space as part of their 50 acres until they eventually built out all 50 acres, which will probably take them 30 to 40 years. So there will be some additional green space in the college campus. There'll be some green space in the future elementary school that is part of that. And of course, all the urban green space that you'll find in any other housing development project with medium islands and things of that nature. So don't see this as the only green space in that area, but one part of a green space as part of a series of them.
Correct. And just to clarify, the park will actually have two separate water services. One is the potable water, the drinking water for, restroom, sinks, any drinking fountains, anything in the park. If there were ultimately in the concept a splash pad or any type of fountain feature, that would all have potable water, drinking water per state, and, just regional board standards. That any landscape irrigation for turf or trees, shrubs, that would be the recycled water.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott, for elaborating. Clint William asks, what parking is planned, if any, for the community center and museum building events? Is the plan to use Park Loop Road parking?
Let me try to address that. When we went to the community in 2017 and designed park and partnered with the city and State Center College Community District to West Fresno campus there, we knew that parking would be a challenge. And we do have a relationship with State Center College Community District for event parking. And we hope that will help mediate some of the demand for event parking substantially. And we think with the additional residential blocks that we have, that we'll be able to handle the residual demands for events. So I think we have a good foundation in place. And as State Center continues to finalize their particular footprint for their parking, we'll be able to get an exact, number in terms of what types of what we'll be able to get.
To that question, though, I do want to be clear. Whatever buildings are built on those corners will have parking requirements of some kind. It won't be street parking that addresses their needs. There is parking requirements in the municipal code. So, we'll have to address that when those final plans are completed and we know the square footage of each building and the purpose of the building.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman, for clarifying those specific building parking, subsidies, and that's exactly correct. So, and of course, we're looking to hopefully leverage any additional parking there around for events as well. Thank you.
Okay. Letitia Harris asks, will there be a requirement that some of the contracts for the project go to a minority-owned or disadvantaged business?
This project, I believe, falls under the project labor agreement because it's above $1 million. But I don't know if it applies given that it's state funded and not city funded. I believe future phases of the park, if it hits that threshold over $1 million, would the project labor agreement that the city adopted would apply. And that does have minority, as a consideration, minority-owned businesses and contractors. As to the other two buildings, that would be a question for Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Councilman. That's an extraordinarily fantastic question, Letitia. I am a visionary and strategic planner by trade, but I'm a transformative visionary. And when I foresaw and developed West Creek Village Development Project area, I meant to change the industry when it came to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the city of Fresno has helped us lead the way in that particular effort. The park consultants that you guys are listening to tonight are a minority firm. It's headed up by two Latino lady CEOs, which was a tremendous effort on our part at 2500 MLK in the city of Fresno to give the additional effort necessary at the highest industry level for me being a minority property owner and developer, and then the next step to helping to build equity in our society is who designs what is being built, not just who owns it, but who designed it. And so we made a tremendous effort working with Scott Moser and his team at the City of Fresno, and they helped us land minority park design consultant to design the park. In addition to that, our master plan developers for West Creek Village, Moles and Polizotis, is a heavily laden minority firm. But now, Letitia, we're in our construction design phase. And those two iconic buildings, the iconic museum and Connected Impact Center, our regional commercial, our multifamily, and our neighborhood commercial are all being headed up and designed by an African-American architectural firm. So we mean from the ground up to change the way business is being done in America. And we have the luxury of starting here in Fresno and the opportunity to be able to do it in District 3. This is a monumental moment in history, and I thank you for your question. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Sylvester. Very similar question. Will both the iconic museum and community center be free to the community? Who will be responsible for managing and operating both of these facilities?
Again, thank you for the question. Yes, access to those buildings will be free. The iconic museum, if you will be managed and directed by Mr. Will Portis, who lives less than a block from the facility and been in our community for over 70 years. All those events that they'll be planning, of course, are in the early stages. With respect to the Connected Impact Center, if you can reflect back on our slide, we had probably about 15 different nonprofit prospective collaborative partners that's going to be in there providing various services to families, and all those services, if you will be provided through some of those nonprofit providers, and they'll determine, what services they provide are free, and then, which ones are billable. But we have child care development, we have job readiness, career development, telemedicine, prenatal care earmarked. We have nutritional programs, housing programs, health programs for both youth and seniors throughout the. So again, yes, those are nonprofit centers, and we plan on providing as many free services as possible. Thank you for your question.
Great. I think we have time for 2 more questions. Kimberly asks, residents have requested an outdoor roller rink, and there's no question mark there, but I wonder whether we have the opportunity to provide that service or amenity within the loop. Maria?
Sorry, was missing my mute button. Sorry, Anton, can you repeat the question?
Oh, residents have requested an outdoor roller skating rink, and I wanted to speak to the loop and how that might accommodate.
Well, we are, because of some of the comments that we have answered, that this will be an ADA facility and we need to provide access throughout the park. Part of the loop and the materiality that we're thinking is to give a concrete surface. So I can see how we might use that in different ways. So maybe, as we said, some people might want to use it for small kids riding their bike, but also potentially for skating could be another possibility. I've also seen, that sometimes there are events with music and roller skating. So a place such as the amphitheater platform maybe can become a place for something like that, where more people can interact with such an event.
Okay, great. So West Fresno Family Resource Center has more of a statement that is really positive and encouraging from Yolanda Randalls. Hello, this park will be historic. I would love to see a rock pedal design with community members' names on them, perhaps a fundraiser for scholarship programs. Design a rock, $25, just a thought. Thank you for that comment, Yolanda. It's one that is encouraging, and it sounds like we're going in the right direction. There are several other comments and questions on this feed that we will definitely take account of and have a response for you all. It's been really, really engaging, and wanted to give an opportunity for a few closing statements from the panel.
Anton, if I may, I just want to, as exciting as this is to get a brand new park and have the resource finally to build it, I also want to just remind all of us that this is actually where the difficult work begins. Do you pick a soccer field over a tennis court, over a basketball court, over a playground? The park, although is 10 acres, there isn't enough room for everything and every feature that people may want. And what's important for me as we go down this process is to just remind folks that this park doesn't have to be everything that everyone wants today, because we have several other parks that we're going to begin to renovate, potentially redesign, repurpose, get some better use out of them. So as exciting as this is really where the difficult work begins, because I could imagine if we had 50 15-year-olds on the call today, they would all be asking for a skate park and a bike park, and they would be asking us to have benches that are made out of cement so they can use their skateboards on them. If we had 50 seniors, they would be asking for different features, maybe not an amphitheater, maybe something else. So just keep in mind, be patient with our consultants and our staff as we try to get the first phase done, and then think intentionally about what population will live around there, what the population already there and the future residents in that area would want and have a good use of, while recognizing that we do have good basketball courts around the corner. We're going to have 3 schools that all have basketball courts. We're going to have 2 schools that have great swimming pools. There's other amenities in that area that we're going to be able to balance out. So just be patient. And the one thing I will say is we'll all be happy and excited, but some of us are also going to be disappointed that we didn't get to see that one amenity that we're looking for. So, but this is a good conversation to have. Before, we're simply having conversations about, we're just trying to cut the grass from an existing park. Now we're actually building new parks and renovating existing parks. So thank you for this conversation. We'll do it one more time for this park, and then we'll begin the construction of the first phase of the park.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Sylvester, I wanted to give you closing statements.
Thank you, Anton, and thank the community. We've endured for over 50 years in Southwest Fresno. I want everyone to think as wide open as they can think about the integration and the holistic amenities that this park could have. 2500 MLK Master Development is committed to working with the city and the consultant group to deliver all the amenities that the City of Fresno, the community, and the Master Developer Group can cooperatively come up with. We have Measure P now, we have a development agreement with the city to match the TCC funding of $5.33 million at a minimum. So the community really has a budget beyond TCC to work with, and I want you to keep your minds open to what you longed for over 50 years. West Creek Village Development Project area is designed to be an integrated, sustainable, transformative community. And the park is the nucleus of that development, where for the first time in over 50 years, we have a home builder that's going to come in and build 136 quality homes. We're building you a regional commercial retail center, urgent cares, and medical services. And this park needs to be at the highest level of any park that you can imagine. I look forward to working with the citizens of Southwest Fresno to continue to realize our dreams of a better community, a more healthy community, and a more cohesive community. Thank you, and God bless you.
Great. Thank you very much. So if there are any other questions that happen either later this evening over dinner or throughout the week or months, please feel free to contact Transform Fresno. The contact number is here on the screen. Please take note of it. We appreciate your time and your energy and your dedication to this project, and we look forward to working with you in the near future. And we look forward to meeting you. Thank you very much.